You are 25 years old, and $500 feels like a lot of money, because it is. Rent is due, insurance is due, the car needs something, your friend is getting married, your phone is getting old, and somehow every dollar in your paycheck already has a job before the paycheck even arrives. You are not completely broke, you are just spoken for. Then one night, you see a calculation. $500 invested every month. 30 years. And the final number is large enough that you stop scrolling, so you run it yourself. For this story, we are going to use one simple illustration: $500 invested every month. A hypothetical 7% average annual return, compounded monthly. Actual investment returns will not arrive smoothly like this. Markets can rise, fall, and lose money. Investor, Gov itself asks users to enter an estimated return when modeling compound growth, because future returns are assumptions, not guarantees. But if the hypothetical math plays out, 30 years later, about $610,000. And here is the strange part. You only contributed $180,000. The other roughly $430,000 came from hypothetical growth. That is the part that catches you. Not because $500 is magic. Because time is. So you decide to start. Month 1, you open the account. Maybe part of your investing happens through a workplace retirement plan. Maybe an IRA if you are eligible. Maybe a taxable brokerage account depending on your goals. For context, in 2026, the general IRA contribution limit is $7,500 for most people under 50, while the employee 401 deferral limit is $24,500. Roth IRA eligibility also depends on income, but you are not trying to max anything today. You are trying to create one rule: $500 leaves before your lifestyle gets a vote. You automate it. First paycheck, $500, gone, and something unexpected happens. Your life continues. You still eat. You still pay rent. You still see friends. The month adjusts around the missing $500. That is the first lesson. Before you started, $500 felt impossible because your lifestyle had already claimed it. Once you remove it first, the lifestyle starts learning to survive on what remains. Then month 2 comes. Another $500. Month 3. Another. Investor, Gov, calls consistently investing equal amounts at regular intervals dollar cost averaging. It does not guarantee a profit, but it creates a systematic way to keep investing through both rising and falling markets. After 3 months, you have contributed $1,100. The account might be slightly above that, maybe below it, and you feel almost nothing. This is where investing becomes psychologically difficult. You sacrificed real spending for an invisible result. Nobody compliments your portfolio. Nobody asks you to drive them around in your Roth IRA. Nobody sees the automatic transfer. The decision is completely invisible, and that is exactly why it can become powerful. Year 1, 12 months. You personally contributed $6,000. Under our smooth hypothetical 7% illustration, the account would be around $6,196, about $196 of growth. That is it. You spent an entire year investing, and hypothetical growth did not even cover a nice weekend trip. This is where people misunderstand compounding. They expect the investment to immediately become the engine. It doesn't. At the beginning, you are the engine. Your contribution is doing almost all the work. But something much more important has happened. $500 no longer feels like money you are losing every month. It feels like infrastructure, like rent, like insurance. Except this payment goes to a version of you who does not exist yet. And then something happens. The car breaks. The repair is $1,700. This is where the perfect investing story usually says, never stop investing. Real life is more complicated. If you do not have emergency savings, every surprise can force you back onto high-interest debt or force you to sell investments at a bad time. So you build a cash reserve too. The point of the emergency fund is not maximum return, it is keeping emergencies from destroying the rest of your financial plan. Before compounding works for you, you also look at your credit cards. Because there is no point celebrating a hypothetical 7% investment return while a credit card is charging you 20%, 25%, or more. Investor, Gov says eliminating high-interest credit card debt generally offers a better and much lower risk financial outcome than trying to earn an investment return high enough to beat that debt cost. That becomes another rule. Before you obsess over compounding working for you, make sure compounding is not working against you. You pay down expensive revolving debt. And because this is part of your entire financial foundation, you finally review your credit reports too. Experian, TransUnion, Equifax, not to dispute everything negative. To make sure the information is accurate. The CFPB specifically tells consumers to check for accounts that are not theirs. Incorrect late payments, closed accounts reported open, duplicate debts, wrong balances, and incorrect credit limits. If something is genuinely inaccurate, you dispute the specific error and support it with documentation. The CFPB says consumers have the right to dispute errors and generally should address them with both the credit reporting company and the company that supplied the information. Then, you go back to investing. Because credit repair is not the destination, it is closing another leak. Year 330, 6 months. You have personally contributed $18,000. Hypothetical balance, about $19,965. Now almost $2,000 came from growth. Better, still not life-changing. But the machine has started making noise. Your first year's money has now had almost 3 years to grow. Your second year's money has had almost 2. Your newest $500 has barely started. Every contribution is entering the same machine at a different point in time, and that is what makes the curve bend later. The oldest dollars get the most time. You start noticing something else. You no longer check the account every day. At 25, every market decline felt like something had gone wrong. Now you understand, red does not automatically mean broken. Markets move. Your plan was built for years, not Friday afternoon. So you continue. Year 560 transfers. Your money contributed. $30,000. Hypothetical balance, about $35,796. Growth, roughly $5,800. Now the portfolio is starting to participate. But you are still doing most of the work. And this is exactly where people get impatient. 5 years feels like a long time. $36,000 may not feel like enough. Then someone shows you a stock that doubled. Someone shows you crypto gains. Someone shows you a screenshot from an options trade. Your boring diversified plan suddenly feels slow. But slow and failing are not the same thing. The most dangerous thing about a boring strategy is that eventually excitement starts looking intelligent. So you remind yourself, you are not trying to win this year. You are trying to build something that still exists 25 years from now. Year 10, the crossover you are 35. 10 years. 120 monthly contributions. Your money, $60,000. Hypothetical balance, about $86,542. Growth, around $26,500. And now something interesting happens. 7% of roughly $86,000 is about $6,000. Your annual contributions are also $6,000. This is approximately where, under our smooth hypothetical model, the potential annual growth of the portfolio starts becoming comparable to the amount you personally add each year. Again, this is not a permanent crossover. The next real market year could be negative. But mathematically, something has changed. The capital now has enough weight to potentially do as much work as you do. Think about that. For 10 years, you carried the portfolio. Now the portfolio is finally strong enough to start carrying part of itself. The percentage never became stronger. The base became bigger. Year 15 you are 40. Total contributions, $90,000. Hypothetical balance, about $158,481. More than $68,000 of the account now comes from growth in this illustration. And this is where $500 starts feeling almost strange. Because 7% of $158,000 is more than $11,000. You are still contributing $6,000 per year. The capital has become larger than the annual effort required to feed it. You still work, still invest, still live your life. But there is now a financial employee working beside you. Capital. It does not ask for vacation. But it also does not guarantee a paycheck. Some years it can create large gains. Some years it can lose tens of thousands. That is why diversification, time horizon, and risk tolerance still matter even when the number gets bigger. In fact, discipline becomes more important. A 20% decline on $20,000 is $4,000. A 20% decline on $158,000 is more than $31,000. Same percentage, completely different emotion. Year 20 you are 45. You contributed $120,000. Hypothetical account value, about $260,463. Growth, roughly $140,000. Now the hypothetical growth is larger than every dollar you personally put into the account across 2 decades. Read that again. You worked for the $120,000. You earned it, budgeted it, transferred it. The additional lays $140,000 exists because those contributions had time to compound under our assumed return. This is when people looking from the outside begin calling you good with money. But they did not see year 1. They did not see $6,196. They did not see the car repair, the credit card payoff, the market decline, the month when you desperately wanted the extra $500. They see the tree. They did not watch you watering dirt. Year 30 you are 55. 360 transfers. Your total contributions, $180,000. Hypothetical balance, approximately $609,985, meaning around $430,000 of hypothetical growth. You put in $180,000. The math added roughly $430. And remember, we never increased the contribution. You made more money over the decades. Inflation changed. Your career changed. But for this experiment, the $500 stayed exactly $500. If you had increased it with income, the outcome could be materially different. If actual market returns were lower, the result could be substantially lower. If higher, there is no guaranteed $610,000 waiting for you. That is not the point of the story. The point is what happened to the relationship between your money and your effort. Year 1, almost everything came from you. Year 5, still mostly you. Year 10, the portfolio begins becoming a serious partner. Year 20, the hypothetical growth exceeds everything you contributed. Year 30, the majority of the account came from capital having enough time to work. That is compounding, not magic, not a loophole. Time operating on an increasingly larger base. What the $500 really bought you thought the $500 was buying investments. It was buying options. At 25, one car repair could go straight onto a credit card. At 35, maybe you have an emergency reserve. At 45, your investments are serious enough that your paycheck is no longer the only thing on your balance sheet. At 55, maybe this $610,000 hypothetical account is only one part of the picture. Maybe you also have a workplace retirement plan, home equity, cash, other investments. Maybe you do not. But the version of you who started has something the version who kept waiting never built. A machine. And that is the real lesson. The 30 years are going to pass either way. You can spend the entire time saying, when I make more, when the market is safer, when my bills calm down, when I understand investing better. Or you can start with an amount that actually fits your life. Maybe that is $500. Maybe it is $100. Maybe right now the smartest use of that money is paying off a 25% credit card before investing aggressively. The exact number is not the lesson. The system is. Protect yourself from emergencies. Destroy expensive debt. Keep your credit accurate. Then automate long-term investing at a level you can actually sustain. And when your income increases, do not automatically let every raise become a larger lifestyle. Give the future version of you some of it. Because at first, $500 feels like something you are giving up. 30 years later, you may realize it was one of the few monthly expenses that was actually buying something back. Time, options, capital, and eventually, a financial life that does not depend entirely on what happens to your next paycheck. The first transfer will not feel powerful, neither will the 10th. That is the trick. The powerful decisions rarely announce themselves when you make them. They become powerful because you keep making them. $500 every month. Then give the money enough time to become heavier than the sacrifice that started it. Based on the timeline and emotional progression of the provided reference,